Welcome to episode 37 of Oscar Sunday. I'm Austin Johnson.
I'm Connor Eyzaguirre.
And today we are going to talk about High Noon from 1952, which received 7 nominations at the 25th Academy Awards. It won 4: Best Score, Best Song, Best Film Editing, and Gary Cooper, the man, the myth, the legend, won for best actor. Even though he was not there. He was not at the ceremony. John Wayne accepted the award on his behalf. Hard to say those words out loud. Right away, Gary Cooper. What comes to mind when you think of this guy?
Sergeant York, gobbling turkey noises and shooting Germans. That's my immediate Gary Cooper image every time.
I love it. He's come up on this show, just with Wings. We had no idea who was in that until we watched it. We were like, wait a minute, is that fucking Gary Cooper? Oh God, it is. And then he came up, and when we did the Mank episode, we were talking about, Mankiewicz and, Citizen Kane. So we talked about Pride of the Yankees, and he's wonderful in that movie. But we're in different territory here. We're talking about High Noon, maybe his best performance ever. Is that what you think?
High Noon, I don't know if it's his best performance ever, but it's definitely his best movie, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like
High
that.
Noon.
It's hard to say, I haven't seen the Westerner. There's a few movies that I know I need to knock out before I can totally say what his best performance ever is. But I see what you mean with High Noon. It's just an outstanding movie that kind of is an outlier in its own genre, in its own time, and just kicks ass still, 70 years later. So that's really cool.
Well, it's a film that goes against every other Western of the 50s. It's a movie that stands on its own because no one else would ever make something like this in 1952. In the midst of the Blacklist, in the midst of McCarthyism, this is a movie that, a lot of people have said is wholly un-American. A film that trashes the traditional Western American values, and in a very honest and brutal way, which is incredibly ahead of its time. This film, we're still talking about it today because it feels like something that could have been made last year. It's remarkable.
Exactly. Yeah. It feels like something that, some, 30-year-old directors, it's like, look at this kick-ass action movie that's an hour and 25 minutes and just kind of whips around. There's really cool dialogue. And I don't know, man, this is my first time seeing it.
Yeah.
And I was stunned, completely stunned at times. And I'll be watching it time and time again. I want to go ahead and speak a little bit about, the Blacklist thing. I want to get your take on that. I know you've done some research, and this is kind of an area of film history that you're really interested in. So I kind of want to open the floor for you to speak on High Noon and that situation, the Blacklist.
Yeah, of course. So in the 50s, Senator Joseph McCarthy was leading up the House Un-American Activities Committee in Congress, where he was ripping apart anybody who was accused or thought of, or considered being part of the Communist Party. It's called the Red Scare. And this, wasn't just colleges and government. It got into Hollywood. Actors' careers were destroyed. Other actors were naming names. One of the guys who named names was John Wayne. He was a, staunch patriot, despite having, never served. He was very pro-war and pro-American values, and he trashed a lot of careers. And one of the guys he named was, I think, the guy who wrote High Noon. And they made High Noon almost out of spite. And it was a film that reflected anti-American values, as in, it's not the, unflinching hero who saves the day. It's not the town that rallies behind him. It's a man dealing with a conflict of conscience while the town no longer believes in him, which is not what, that's not the wholesome American ideology that every other film was reflecting in the 50s. And when you have that, and when this film's a success, it starts making waves and people start, thinking about things they're not supposed to be thinking about. And John Wayne goes out of his way to make a response to this called Rio Bravo in 1959 with Howard Hawks, who also fucking hated this movie because of the way it portrays Americans. And this film, shattered John Wayne and Gary Cooper's friendship. Wayne saw Cooper as like a straight up communist. That's what this was. And weirdly enough, despite all that, it was criticized in the Soviet Union as glorifying the individual. So not even the communists saw this as a communist film. It was just people, projecting their own bullshit onto this film. And it's definitely worth more research. I have a book called High Noon that's about all of that I have not gotten to read yet because I'm in grad school and I'm very busy. But it's such a brilliant insight and a really cool era of Hollywood that a lot of people really don't talk about anymore because it's so goddamn dark.
That's it right there, is that it's something that people want to avoid. And I think you and I want to tackle those things.
Oh yeah.
We immediately are kind of entranced by that part of Hollywood, the edgy, dark, nasty parts, because we want to know. We want to hold the whole fucking thing accountable, the whole industry. And we did a whole episode over on Filmgazm about John Wayne and watched a bunch of his movies and really, really dug in and learned a lot through that episode. I don't want to say I learned a lot about film through watching his movies, but I really, really am grateful for those moments where you just kind of look at everything. I love when a film like Trumbo comes out, where it tackles that kind of idea and brings it to light. And that was something that influenced me to, go back and do my own research. I think it's really important to bring up. And this movie, High Noon, having what people thought was this, super conservative Republican playing this character and how it's lasted this long as this kind of, at this point, it's kind of like this character study, and it's compared to great films and looked at as one of the best Westerns. People who don't like Westerns like it. It's totally above it, man. Any criticism that it can get, it does what we want movies to do. It kind of stretches the genre, stretches what characters can be on the screen, and then you get a whole different world. And that's happened so many times on the show, and I knew that was coming on this episode. I've heard so many things about High Noon. It's hard to avoid it when you love movies and you listen to people talk about movies. Yeah. But I finally got to see it with my own eyes, and it for sure is a damn near masterpiece, and something after I rewatch a few times, I'm sure I'll catch more and more tricks that are so amazing, because I think that's why this movie moves so well. There's just tricks happening over and over, and you got at the center Gary Cooper just crushing it.
Well, also, in the midst of the Hays Code, which we keep bringing up on the show because it's so damn relevant every time.
It's huge.
There's so few. Yeah, there's so few films made during that era that actually were honest depictions, and High Noon is one of those films.
Yes,
High Noon caught a lot of shit specifically because the girl rescues the hero at the end. That did not happen. That was new territory, and to me, I was more like, for me, it was a big moment of like, she stood by him. She's like with him. That was good. That was a cheer moment for me. But back in the 50s, people were like, fuck that. I mean, that's crazy. And one thing I do love about this movie is also representation. We have a Mexican American actress playing a Mexican character, and not just that, but a strong individual, which is awesome. Like, it's not a caricature. It's not, brown face. She's a solid character. And I mean, this film there's so much to like about it. I feel like this should have been the template for films in the 50s. Like, people, instead of ignoring the values it was trying to proclaim, Hollywood should have looked at this and thought, we need to do more of this. This needs to be what the stories that we tell. And they didn't really do that until the 60s. Yeah,
no, until late 60s, 70s. We've brought that up over and over on the show that once the Hays Code kind of gets annexed in the late 60s, you see stuff changing. It's obvious in American filmmaking, things start changing rapidly. And you have to credit films like High Noon for opening the minds of the previous generation. And
Yeah.
Like for filmmakers in the 90s who are influenced by films of the past, it would be like Taxi Driver or, one of those amazing, One for the Cuckoo's Nest. Like that's what it would be, the equivalent, the 20 years before that is High Noon. It really is one of those movies. And it's going to be a treat to talk about it today, man. I want to start off by talking about some of the individuals before we, of course we're going to give our awards out later, but before we do all that, I really do want to talk about the individuals here. And, we've talked a bit about Gary Cooper, but before that, I want to talk about Fred Zinnemann, the director here.
Yeah. A
guy that you and I can't seem to escape.
Yeah.
on this show.
I made a bit of a fool of myself back in the apartment episode. We talked about the Sundowners. Didn't realize Fred Zinnemann had such a beautiful filmography, despite the fact that I had seen this before. And yeah, I'll never live that down. But hey, I stand by the fact the Sundowners was shit, but High Noon, that's where it's at. So yeah, I'm glad Fred Zinnemann, you've redeemed yourself in my eyes.
Yeah. I think so. And then, when you look at his filmography, like you said, here it is as far as the Oscar nominations go. It's Best Director for The Search, 1949. Winner for Best Documentary, Short Subject, Benji, 1951. We got Best Director for High Noon. Of course, we're going to be talking about that. He won for Best Director From Here to Eternity, a movie I cannot wait to do. Burt Lancaster is a guy I just want to chase now. Yeah, he's wonderful. And Elmer Gantry, I know you got to watch Atlantic City recently.
Yeah, for no apparent reason. And it was great. Yeah. I advise you, when you watch Atlantic City, think of it as a spiritual sequel to Elmer Gantry, and it's amazing.
I love that. Noted. Yeah, I can't wait to talk about that one day. And but back to Zinnemann here. He's he keeps going. He nominated for Best Director of The Nun Story, 1959. Nominated for Best Picture and Best Director, Sundowners. We both watched that. Neither of us really liked that one at all. Won Best Picture and Best Director for A Man for All Seasons, of course, and then nominated for Best Director for Julia, 1977. Yeah, it's quite a list there. And I can't say much because I've only seen two of these. Yeah. One of them I really, really, really like, and the other one I'm not interested in. But for whatever reason, when I see this amount of stuff going on, I'm just inclined. I'm inclined to know what's going on and try to watch them all. And so eventually I'm going to do that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, a lot of those films have been on my list for years. A Man for All Seasons specifically, I've wanted
exactly
for a very long time. And yeah, this guy is a guy we're going to for sure explore on this show. Yeah,
so there's a couple there that he'll come back at some point, of course, for Best Picture showdowns with From Here to Eternity at some point, and A Man for All Seasons. I mean, those are both ones that we'll base episodes around. So, very, very cool, and I'm excited that there's individuals like that we're going to just explore and discover and be like, oh my gosh, you make these cinematic connections.
Oh yeah.
And it's beautiful. It's part of why we do this.
Hell yeah. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So Gary Cooper, let's look at this guy's Oscar resume. Oh man, pretty cool stuff here. And these are all movies that I think everybody should try to check out, because the man rarely misses. Gary Cooper. He's won 2 Oscars, of course, for High Noon and Sergeant York, but he's also won an honorary award that was in 1961, I believe.
Yeah.
And he's also been nominated for Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, nominated for Pride of the Yankees and For Whom the Bells Toll. We've talked about all of those, like brought them up in some way, and we've both watched The Pride of the Yankees. Mr. Deeds Goes to Town is the one that I know I got to see. That's been on my list for a long time.
Oh yeah, I've heard good things about this. He's, I love Frank Capra to death. That guy has yet to disappoint me. And yeah, I'm for sure in for Mr. Deeds Goes to Town. For Whom the Bell Tolls is one that keeps coming back up.
I know, dude. Yeah, we should have watched that for I believe the Ingrid Bergman one.
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
Have those two titans together. My God.
Yeah, these things, they start. I'm telling you, they start just kind of connecting, especially these older. When we do these older decades, there's just so little going on as far as what's at the top at the Oscars, and it starts connecting. It starts connecting whether you look one way or the other. But yeah. Gary Cooper, man, there's a lot more going on outside of his Oscar nominations. He's a breathtaking guy. I was reading quotes about him from other actors, just kind of talking about him, and stuff from Daniel Day-Lewis and Tom Hanks and all these just kind of legendary guys. And there's kind of a universal respect for him as a performer and just as a dude. That's a pretty cool dude. And I really like that. I worried a bit, as I started reading just kind of this connection to John Wayne he had. And then, you watch High Noon and start reading about High Noon, and it changes everything. And I like Gary Cooper more now.
Yeah. I mean, him being, such an influence to the greats of today, it's not surprising, but it does make me smile. And I love that he was, for Daniel Day-Lewis to say that Gary Cooper is awesome. That's exciting. And
no kidding.
The thing with John Wayne, I mean, we've all had friendships where all of a sudden we realize the guy or girl we know is not the guy or girl we know. We've all had those situations where we're like, oh shit, you're a monster. And that's what happened with Cooper and Wayne. I mean, it's a shame, but yeah, John Wayne's a prick. I'll say that forever.
Yeah, no, yeah, there's no doubt about that. Oh man, you talked about one of the really cool parts of the plot of this film, High Noon, is that the woman saves the day, and it's the lovely Grace Kelly, an absolute star, has been nominated twice and has won once. She won for The Country Girl, 1954, and was nominated for Mogambo. So, have you seen either of those?
No, but I'm very against the Country Girl win because to me, she stole it from Judy Garland for A Star Is Born. I'll never forget that. So I have not seen The Country Girl yet, but I'm already going in with a bad disposition on that one. maybe just a little bit biased. Hey, yeah. we all do that. I think she was the Princess of Monaco after she retired, and then she was killed in a car accident. She had a very strange life.
Yeah, super interesting, and someone that you hear the name here and there. Mm-hmm. Grace Kelly, you hear it around, but when you really dig in, you realize, like you said, you're kind of this kind of dark life, and seems like a lot of these Hollywood actresses, once you start doing that research, these old Hollywood actresses, they had very interesting lives and not always fun to read about.
Well, at least Grace Kelly wasn't bleached Rita Hayworth style. I'll never forget that one.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we could bring up a lot, and it's just, it's nasty. It's terrible. This industry that we love, we know how just twisted it is at times. And you and I like to bring those stories up, just like we like to bring the Blacklist stuff up. We also like to look at these different weird stories. And that's part of like why we started Filmgazm, doing the podcast, is to do different kinds of genre films and different takes on them. And look how far we've come.
I know. Right? I think about that all the time.
Oh man.
Grace Kelly, I want to spotlight two movies specifically.
Of course.
Rear Window and Dial M for Murder.
Yeah, you got to talk about the Hitchcock stuff. Yeah, yeah.
She is lights out in these movies. And they're both such great crime dramas, suspense thrillers that you're just on the edge of your seat the whole time. Rear Window, especially. That movie has one of the most
Oh yeah,
pulse
yeah.
pounding climaxes I've ever seen. And yeah, I love that she has this whole connection with Hitchcock. And she's an actress, another actress I really want to further explore. But I've got a couple under my belt, which is nice.
Hell yeah, man. I love that. I love that. Anytime you can connect Hitchcock to an actor that understands what he's doing and totally gets the pace. Yeah, it's beautiful because he's obviously one of the most, not just one of the best, but one of the most important filmmakers of all time. His influence is still going right now.
Oh, hell yeah. He's a guy who you can kind of see him, you can see flakes of Hitchcock in like every horror movie made post 1960. It's crazy. Like there's a little Hitchcock all over the map these days. He might be the most influential filmmaker of all time.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible. Oh, what a cool title, definitely a dude that is pretty intimidating to do on this show.
Yeah.
There's filmmakers that are that are tough. It's tough to, first off, within a week watch all you really need to have the full Hitchcock perspective. Very, very difficult, but one day I want to do that, and it's going to be very difficult to pick which film.
Well, I believe we got a Best Picture showdown coming on eventually with Rebecca, so that might be a good place.
Yeah, of course. That's always good if we can touch on it, within a showdown. That's it. I'm fine with that.
But he's got, Oscar nominations out the wazoo. I mean, we could do Rear Window, we could do To Catch a Thief, we could do it's all over the place. North by Northwest. He's got so many incredible movies that have just, one or two nominations that really we could do an entire friggin' series on Hitchcock.
Exactly. That's my main thing about it being intimidating is that if you base it around one film, you got to talk about them all. Hitchcock is a guy. Last week we did Boogie Nights last week, and we went down the line of Paul Thomas Anderson. It's a lot easier to do that than to go down the line of Hitchcock's career and really tackle everything. But I still want to do it.
As do I.
And that's really cool that you find that connection in Grace Kelly and just two really cool performances. So I love that.
Oh yeah.
Awesome, man. Yeah. These are individuals that are Fred Zinnemann, Gary Cooper, Grace Kelly. These are people that they're going to just come up inevitably throughout the show. And it's always good to highlight those people. That's what we like to do, on Oscar Sundays. Who are the people that they think are important, and do we think that they're worth all this praise? And in my opinion, Gary Cooper, watching Sergeant York and watching High Noon for the first time this week, both kick-ass performances. I can't say that he deserves it over all these other guys because I haven't seen those movies, but he is breathtaking. He just uses his eyes. That's all he needs to tell you what's going on. And I love the guy. So that's definitely the individual that I was most inspired by this week.
I want to talk about one more guy, one more Oscar winner.
Of course.
Mr. Thomas Mitchell.
Yes, he's the next man on the bill. Yeah.
Thomas Mitchell is a guy I first learned about when I saw It's a Wonderful Life. And he's a guy who kept popping up on films that I would watch pre 1950. And I looked at his filmography and he is just all over the place. He's in so many amazing, iconic films.
Yeah.
He won for Stagecoach in 1939. Was also nominated for The Hurricane in 1937. And he's just a really cool presence. He's one of the first character actors, Thomas Mitchell. And just a guy I kind of wanted to throw out there.
No, yeah, totally necessary. Yeah. I was wondering if you're going to do that because I know I usually pick a few if we're doing a movie like this, pick a few individuals who have are Oscar decorated. And I saw Mitchell and they had the two from the 30s. And I was wondering if you're going to do that. I'm quite proud. When you talk about his filmography, you just go on IMDb and you see the first 4 movies: Stagecoach, Gone with the Wind, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, It's a Wonderful Life. That's that's about as strong as it can get when you're looking at a guy's front 4 on IMDb.
How good is your career when High Noon is not among your most recognized films?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I love that. We love bringing up the character actors. We have an award named after Philip Seymour Hoffman, and Thomas Mitchell definitely fits under that kind of category, right? A guy who brings something totally different to the table. Definitely want to see The Hurricane. That's one of those random 30s films that I have my radar on now because of this show.
Love it.
Yeah, it's it's beautiful. You open doors and realize how much you don't know.
Oh yeah.
Oh man. High Noon, 7 nominations. I want to go through those. Just kind of talk about what we think maybe it deserved to win. Maybe it deserves some other nominations. But I don't necessarily want to talk too much about the other 1952 movies because we just don't have a whole lot to say. I really want to focus in on High Noon, and we'll give our awards out soon. But I do want to talk about these 7 because it was amongst at the 25th Academy Awards. High Noon was amongst the most nominated movies at that show, along with The Quiet Man and Moulin Rouge.
Okay.
Going into the show, High Noon was like, this is winning, like guaranteed, like no doubt. Everyone was like, yeah, like it's 100%, like this is what's happening. And it's looked at as one of the biggest upsets. I've looked at many lists that have The Greatest Show on Earth in like the bottom 5 best picture winners of all time. It is just got this reputation of being kind of shitty. And one of those, when you look back, it's just kind of obvious. It's just kind of highway robbery. High Noon is right there sitting in front of you, and you gave it to this other, kind of silly, dumb movie. So I kind of love when that happens because it gives High Noon this whole other reputation where it can be kind of like the rebellious film, right? That like Citizen Kane lost, High Noon lost, there's movies that lose that kind of gain something from it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally, man. It's funny because when it comes to films before like the 70s, I get a lot of my recommendations from my grandparents because they actually have seen all of these films. They grew up with these movies.
Yeah.
So my grandma
cool.
Pretty cool. My grandma has oftentimes told me that The Greatest Show on Earth is one of the worst movies to ever win Best Picture. So I trust her on that.
Yeah. No, I'm half interested in, doing an episode on that. Obviously it'll be a while before we come back to 1952, but basing a show around a movie that you have heard from so many people that it's bad, it's going to be hard to go into that thinking positively about it at all.
Yeah, true. But sometimes, we find a silver lining, or sometimes it ends up, living up to its reputation. I mean, we don't know yet.
We haven't had to award a bad movie yet. A bad movie.
I really didn't like Hamlet.
It's fine. Like, I don't think it's bad. It was just boring. It's boring and lacks a bit of pizzazz for me. It's a bit boring and a bit dull. But I don't think it's like out of its way bad. And I think there are movies that I've seen that have won Best Picture that are kind of out of their way bad. So I don't know, but that's totally the worst movie we've given awards out to.
Yeah,
100%. And so like it would just be really interesting to you and I go into a movie we haven't seen yet, and it just be shit, or and it really just is horrible. We have to. I think it would be kind of funny if we had to find awards for it.
Yeah, I think it would.
Yeah, I mean, Hamlet was a bit of a struggle, but I think we could push it even further with some of the Best Picture winners.
Yeah, I think we could. We've got a lot to pick from, and there's no way all of those films are masterpieces.
Yeah, no, definitely not. There's no way we both think that they're great either. Yeah, for sure. That's going to happen. High Noon is different. You had seen it going in, and you had good things to say. You're like, oh yeah, you were really keen on rewatching it, and I was like, oh, I can finally knock it off my list. This never ending list in my head of movies that I need to watch that are just there, that at most I need to pay $2.99 to watch. Like, just do it, Austin. High Noon is on that list, and I finally got to do that. So let's go through the 7 nominations. We have 4 winners, so I want to go through the first 3. We got Best Screenplay, Best Director, and Best Picture. Are these ones that it should have won to you off just base knowledge of what you think? Do they deserve these nominations?
They definitely deserve the nomination, and I think this deserves the win for screenplay.
Yeah. That's definitely my favorite thing, is how bare bones, dominant, badass the screenplay is. Just so good, so awesome. And that is my favorite thing of these 3. I really can't say about Best Picture because I like to see the other movies. I really like to have that that perspective. But with the screenplay, it's hard to believe that a movie can be as just kind of precise as this one.
Yeah, I haven't seen The Bad and the Beautiful, so I can't judge if that's that more deserving. But of those films, I've seen High Noon and The Quiet Man, and I would give it to High Noon.
Hell yeah, man. And Fred Zinman for director. You like what's going on there?
I do. I think he is very generous with his camera when he needs to be, but also pulls back at the right moments. I think his experience tells this story. You need somebody who understands what they're making with High Noon, because it's not your grandpa's Western. It's not another John Wayne movie. It's something special, something unique. So if you don't have the right guy behind the camera, that's going to fall apart. And I think that Zinnemann knew what he was doing.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, that's he's certainly got you and I interested. He had our curiosity. Yeah. Before Carl Foreman is the guy, the screenplay. That was the gentleman you were talking about earlier when we first brought up the Blacklist. That combo, Foreman and Zinnemann, that's one of my very, very favorite things in filmmaking is when you get a guy who is writing something pretty daring, especially for its time. And then you get a director who just is just like, yeah, all right, I'll take this story on. Like, let's see what we can do. And totally understands how to utilize Gary Cooper. Yeah. I mean, geez, you talk about how, with the camera moving in, moving out at the right times, it's all about Cooper, making him this larger than life character. And then in moments making him look really small. And yeah, just brilliant stuff. And I love when you have a combo like that. Something like Aaron Sorkin's, one of his most daring screenplays is the Social Network one, and you get a guy like Fincher on his side. I love when that happens. I love when you have 2 different minds kind of tackling the same idea from different angles, and it shows because there's like a balance, and sometimes I feel like that's just the right 1-2 punch that I need as a fan, because I personally watch so many movies from people who are writer directors,
Yeah.
And so it's nice to see a 1-2 punch like this.
I'm looking into this about Carl Foreman.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
He was he was not technically in the Communist Party, but he had been at one point. And his films, he said, were very much about the individual who is facing a hostile environment, which is High Noon straight up. But he was named uncooperative by the HUAC, the House Un-American Activities Committee, because he wouldn't name names. Stanley Kramer, filmmaker, director, found out about this, forced Foreman to sell his part of their production company, tried to get him kicked off of High Noon. This all happened in the middle of writing High Noon. And it was Fred Zinnemann, Gary Cooper, and Bruce Church who intervened and got Carl Foreman to stay. They got him, like they saved his career, basically. He moved to England before High Noon was released nationally because he knew he would never be allowed to work again in America, in Hollywood. And it's crazy. Like this was not, 100 years ago. This was not that long ago. And it's a fucking witch hunt.
70 years ago. And you talked about how your grandparents, know these movies like the back of their hand, and it's movies that get passed down to our generation. You and I, we very much want this kind of stuff to stay alive. You talked about Stanley Kramer. He's a producer of this movie, and man, what a fascinating story behind the scenes of a movie that's being written about a character that's in a hostile environment, and and Carl Foreman is indeed, while writing, enduring a hostile environment. Just this is like what movie making is all about. This is what filmmaking is for. The medium is for stories to be told. Stories, the art of storytelling through filmmaking to be pushed, to be challenged, and man, that's really cool.
You know what the craziest part?
Carl Foreman, yeah.
The craziest part of all of this is that Stanley Kramer was a guy I was just really starting to respect as a filmmaker. He's the guy who did Judgment at Nuremberg and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner and Inherit the Wind. Like, he was great at telling stories of human triumph over horrific shit. And he's the guy who tried to get Carl Foreman kicked off his film because of the Blacklist. How fucking hypocritical is that shit?
Oh. Yeah. Just it makes you think. Makes you think about those other movies. Like, wait a minute, fucker.
Yeah, damn it.
Yeah, for sure. This is. I mentioned earlier, kind of in a joking way, but I think it's serious. You become kind of obsessed with movies, and then you realize how kind of dark, the industry is, and then you start opening doors, and you're like, whoa, there's a lot more going on than I realized with just this stuff that's happening on a big giant screen. Yeah. What's happening behind the scenes is this whole different world. And when you hear something about, a guy like Carl Foreman who just has to like flee the country, essentially, yep. It's scary stuff.
God, it really bums me out about Stanley Kramer. I'm going to be thinking about that for quite a while. Damn. Well.
Yeah, man. Ah, jeez, dude.
What other Oscars was High Noon up for?
Well, those are the three: screenplay, director, and best picture. Those are the ones that it's nominated for. And then the other four are all winners.
Yeah. Just
pure dominance, Gary Cooper, of course, wins for best actor in a lead role. We have best film editing, Elmo Williams and Harry Gerstad. Best original song, Dimitri Timokin and Ned Washington. Tiomkin? I don't know.
Tompkin.
With the I? I'm sorry. I didn't know you pronounced it that way.
I assume it's like Tiomkin or something.
Tiomkin? Like yeah.
Sounds like Cartman saying it.
Dimitri Tiomkin. Yeah, maybe that's right. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, those, obviously the music is a big deal. Film editing, and then the acting. So those are kind of it kind of captures all the things that you want. But is there anything missing for you?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Let's hear it.
Best supporting actress Katie Jurado.
Okay.
And best supporting actor Lloyd Bridges.
I like that. I like that a lot. Lloyd Bridges is
Yeah.
something else.
I think that as good as Cooper is, there's a lot of other really amazing performances in this film that got overlooked. But they were so good. Lloyd Bridges is playing so, like, when you look at, 50s Westerns, you look at the sidekick, the guy who's got the hero's back no matter what. If anything, he's a caricature. And then you got Lloyd Bridges, shooting that caricature in the face by being a complete selfish bastard. And it's so brilliant. And that's Jeff's dad.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
The dynasty of that family just gets me every time.
Incredible. Yeah. It's amazing when you start, we talked about connecting movies. You start connecting families.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Incredible stuff. You talk about Lloyd Bridges. I think, I don't know if he should have been nominated, but Sheb Woolley as Ben Miller has this way where I'm, whoa, seen that before. I've seen some fuckers copy that exact same thing, and he's playing this kind of like stereotypical, guy. I'm gonna go get some liquor, I really, really, really was interested in that character anytime he's on the screen.
I loved seeing Lon Chaney Jr. Like in a straight film. It was, especially as like a guy who's, he was the marshal, he's past his prime, and he realizes he's no good to anybody anymore. Like, he's playing a broken man essentially. And it's so cool because I've only ever seen him as the Wolfman. And to see him play kind of, like the last generation's hero is really cool. Yeah, I think this was toward the end of his life too. Lon Chaney Jr. Let me confirm that.
That's tough. Yeah, let's see.
Oh no, never mind. He lived to 73. Maybe it's makeup, but he looks really old and sick in this movie.
He just looked that way. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Oh man, that's fantastic. Yeah, you could go through really this entire cast and they're all just kind of shooting and going for it and it all works. Ian McDonald, Harry Shannon, Otto Kruger, everyone really does a wonderful job in this movie. It's an hour and 25 minutes and it packs in just these perfect scenes with this awesome dialogue that just keeps building and building and building. And eventually you get a really cool ending.
Yeah. We get a young Lee Van Cleef as Colby.
Yes.
Goes on to be Angel Eyes in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, dominate the Italian Western scene. It's so cool. Like there's so many, things about to happen in High Noon. It really is such a jumping off point for a lot. And yeah, it's one of the most influential films in history.
Yeah, for sure. And before we move to our awards, that there is one more thing I want to just kind of discuss, and that's Westerns. You talked about how influential it is. Well, what other Westerns do you think are kind of in, maybe not in the same category, but somewhere near High Noon? Once Upon a Time in the West, stuff like that. Is there anything else that kind of just jumps out to you that kind of is an outlier and goes above and beyond?
I can name one from the 60s that might surprise you because John Wayne's in it. That would be The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance.
Okay.
Jimmy Stewart and Lee Marvin, because it's another film that plays against your expectations.
Lee Marvin. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. I'm in already.
It's an awesome movie. And it's about a senator who's celebrated for being the guy who took down this notorious outlaw. But as we learn through Jimmy Stewart telling the story, he's not the one who took out the outlaw. He, in fact, is a coward. And he's been living off somebody else's legacy his whole career. And yeah, another film just you don't see in this era. Films that kind of treat the Western hero as almost like something not to aspire to, but something to avoid. Like it's a hyper masculine identity that's just going to get you killed. Like it's not worth it. And I love films that played with that because
Yeah.
there's not enough of them. And I mean, we see it a lot now, but back in the 50s and 60s, you didn't touch that.
No, and so you want to see that with the older lens. Like, it's cool to see those outliers because with that different kind of pace of film and the old style, it's a cool aesthetic. And then it's even cooler when the storytelling and filmmaking is just on point, like High Noon. It's so rewarding.
Oh yeah.
The westerns, like for me, I'm super amateur when it comes to westerns. Like, it's not a genre that I go out of my way for. It's something that, there hasn't been a bunch of stuff in the past decade or so that's like strong in that genre.
Fair enough.
So, I'm 26 years old. So like, that's the most influential time for me, obviously the past 10 years, for watching movies. And, Hostels is pretty good. And like, I think it's 2007, a 310 to Yuma is pretty dope.
Oh yeah.
There's those there that have been there like in my life and I've like really enjoyed and kind of latched onto. But as far as, it goes for these old ones, High Noon and Once Upon a Time in the West just kind of stand above the rest for me. Other stuff kind of blends together, and yeah. I probably need to seek out more things. I've heard the Westerner is a cool one for Cooper, so I'll probably seek that one out sometime soon.
Have you seen Leone's Dollars trilogy?
I have, but it's been quite some time. That's a good one. That's something that's well past due for reevaluation for myself in my own mind. That's a good one to bring up. Thank you.
Yeah, in the 60s, the only ones who were really making masterpieces in the Western genre were the Italians. They were creating something really special, and I recommend seeking out as much of those as possible. I mean, we saw, Once Upon a Time in the West was fucking awesome.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, and then and thanks to that, we got Clint Eastwood's career, and he made a whole bunch of 70s westerns himself. I've seen a few of those. I'm not a fan.
I like the good, the bad, and the ugly. I like that one. That one's cool.
That one's bitchin'. I'm not a fan of High Plains Drifter. I thought that was kind of generic and actually like really weird. The main character, like our hero, is a rapist. It's hard to root for that. I wanted to see Hang 'em High for a long time because that's got such a cool premise. Clint Eastwood is hanged at the beginning of the movie, survives, and goes on a manhunt for the guys who like lynched him.
Yeah, well, Clint Eastwood is a dude who was clearly influenced by Gary Cooper and was like, I'm going to play characters that are not heroes, that you do not look up to this guy, but he has the same costume as the guys that you have looked up to and be like, that's the hero. No. This guy might save the day for some people, but for others, he's going to fuck it up.
That's why I love Unforgiven, because Unforgiven is
like
the spiritual sequel to every Western Clint Eastwood ever did. He's playing the character of Bill Money is the man with no name after he settled down. And then after, it's so cool to see this guy who's like, I was a killer. I murdered hundreds of people, but now I'm okay. Like now I've settled down. And then to go back to that, to be like, one last ride for a good reason. Like I got to channel that darkness again, but this time for the right reasons. That's awesome. And that's why I love the Western, because it's so, every film has a little something to say about the nature of America. And if you'd really like sink into that, you can really find a lot of cool messages. Even the worst Western says something. I love that.
That's great. That's great when a genre can do that. Not all of them do, but it's the Western can give you some kind of morality towards the end. Like, hey, step up. A lot of the old Westerns are a lot about, stepping up, doing the right thing.
Why High Noon is so cool, because it's not.
Yep.
I mean, actually, that's something I wanted to ask you. Like, in this film, do you think that Will Kane is doing the right thing? Let's go ahead. We'll let this bleed into our awards. I think High Noon
and this character Kane, it's great. I don't think that he's I think he's doing what he has to do. He's surviving, just doing acting by nature. And I don't see anything wrong with anything he does. I at the same time don't just like flat out admire him. I don't totally know his whole backstory, what he's exactly all about, which is part of the beauty of it too, which is why I see it just as like this weird character study. Like I don't know exactly what this man is as a sheriff. The situation I see him in is a bunch of people who are just willing to watch things happen, watch things go by, which is how a lot of people are. A lot of people are quick to avoid situations or step to the side or this or that. So for me, High Noon is just a realistic take on a guy who, instead of running, is like, I'll just go ahead and see what happens here. At least I know the lay of the land. And I love movies like that just kind of lay that kind of shit in front of you. And it's not always up to your own interpretation. Sometimes it is just what it is.
Yeah, fair enough. There's a lot of different ways to look at this. I've kind of gone back and forth on this. I think that he's got good intentions. I think Kane really does believe that Frank Miller is going to burn this place down. He's not a good person. He's a bad person. He's evil. But at the same time, I think he is putting the whole town in danger by staying there, because he's the one Frank's after. I think he could. I don't think we'll ever know, because we don't get to see what happens if Kane hightails it at the beginning and Frank shows up and does God knows what to Hadleyville. I don't know. It's interpretive.
Yeah, it certainly can't be good whatever happens to that town. Obviously, once this guy's gone, these people, are just like I said, just willing to avoid.
True, but not just willing to avoid; they're willing to let Kane die. For a man who's protected them for so many years, a man they all loved at the beginning of this. They were all they were at his wedding. They were so happy for him. But the second shit goes down, they're like, it's not my fight. And
I'm gonna hide. Yeah,
that's rough. It's this film does kind of go out of its way to make every character except Will incredibly unlikable, just because of the way they treat him. But upon a second viewing, I kind of got where they were coming from. I don't know. There's a lot to unpack with High Noon.
It's what makes it what it is. Makes it this gray movie that you can rewatch over and over, and you might flip back and forth. You might not know. And that's the best, man. I love films like that you can look at a specific character and ask yourself, what would I do? Is this the right thing? Shit. Is there a right thing?
Yeah.
Because when you're dealing with evil, you just it's becomes unpredictable, and I kind of love that these kind of outlaws represent evil, just kind of coming to a town. They don't know what it represents exactly. It's like a tornado. They don't know if it's going to sweep up everything or if it's just going to kind of roll through the town. They don't know exactly what's going to happen. And Kane is like, I kind of need to see what happens and be here for it and try to steer it out. Because it's tough, man. It's really cool. I love it. And I think it's gonna be really fun doing these awards. And I think we're just going to inherently keep talking about this movie because that's what we do. We have the Tarantino Award for best screenplay, or not best screenplay, best quote or best line. that'd be interesting. What's the best screenplay within High Noon?
I'm gonna go with High Noon. I thought that had the best.
Yeah, best quote or line. Then the Ennio Morricone Award for best music moment. Then we have the Philip Seymour Hoffman Award for best performance in the movie, and we have the Roger Deakins Award for the best scene, best moment of the movie. So Connor, take it away with your Quentin Tarantino.
So my Tarantino comes pretty early in the movie.
Okay.
Right about when Kane finds out Frank Miller has been released from prison and he's on his way, possibly. And he tells Amy, like, I got to take care of business. I got to do this. You know, I put him in jail. He's going to come after me. I have to end this. And she says, like, you know, why are you trying to be a hero? And Will responds with, I'm not trying to be a hero. If you think I like this, you're crazy. And I thought that defined his character so perfectly. Like, I don't want to do this. I have to do this. I'm the goddamn marshal until the new guy shows up tomorrow. This is my town. I'm defending it. Like, fuck yeah, man. Like, how do you not rally behind that guy?
Fucking Gary Cooper delivering too, you know, just like, yeah, you're just kind of in, you know, totally on his side. Like, yeah, let's go, dude. You got this. Oh man, I love that. Mine also comes from him. He's astounding in this movie. It's later on in the film though. And this is, you talked about how when shit hits the fan, the community starts to kind of fade.
Yeah.
And this would be one of those last moments where he realizes, oh, I'm really alone. And he says, "Go on home to your kids, Herb." Oh man, and I think that's when he kind of swallows the fact that he's gonna have to do this by himself. You know, Herb was the last man standing with him, and then it became truly the last man standing.
That whole scene is so goddamn heartbreaking. Herb from the beginning, you know, when he first goes in there, Herb's like, we're going to do this, right? Will, I got your back no matter what. When's the rest of the guys coming? Kane's like, you are the rest of the guys. And he's like, what? I can't do this. I got kids, Will. Like, it goes, like, there's no loyalty at all in this town. It's every man for himself. And that really is, you know, America. That's the world. People are there's very little loyalty in this world, like true loyalty. When shit goes down, you better be ready, as Cypress Hill says.
Yes. Oh, what a great song. Anytime you can shout out Cypress Hill. Yeah. I've always loved that scene on This Is the End when Danny McBride is smoking, you know, and that's the song that's playing as he's making breakfast and, you know, kind of ruining everything for everybody without them knowing it. Yeah.
My God.
Great movie. Great song.
Oh, hell yeah. But yeah, that scene is just like, it goes out of your way to just make you feel so like this giant sense of despair. Like, I'm surprised this movie did not end with them just obliterating Kane in the street. And then the rest of the town being like, well, maybe we should have helped him.
Yeah, damn. If we all stepped up, yeah, this probably could have been a lot easier.
Jesus. I got to imagine that was the original ending, and the studio was like, no. This is the 50s. We got to have heroes.
He needs to win.
Yes.
Fine, we'll have the woman do it. Don't do that. Yeah, I'm sure this was not easy to sell. Yeah.
No, it was not. My God. The middle it's right when Hollywood writers and actors are getting thrown out for possibly being communists, Fred Zinnemann and Carl Foreman go out of their way to make a super anti-American Western. I mean, they were kind of asking for it.
Yeah, they definitely were. Yeah. Incredible stuff. The Ennio Morricone Award. We have. This is our award dedicated to music. What do you got, Connor?
This changed quite a lot. There's so many instances of this in this film when the theme song kicks in, and it works every time. But for me, it was the scene right before Frank Miller rolls into town when Will is in his office, and the score just starts building and building as it zooms in on everybody we've met, like at their face. And the score just like builds all the way to the train whistle. And you realize he's here.
Yeah.
Because the whole movie is the build up to Frank Miller. And it doesn't disappoint. He's like a force of nature. It's really cool.
Yeah, very, very cool. I love the way they choose to build up the evil in this movie, you know, the subtlety of it, then the kind of force of it towards the end. Very cool. I I went with the main title, you know. Do not forsake me, oh my darling. Just God, what a wonderful song. And you know, something that I had heard a few times, and now I get to connect it with the movie that it's from, and I always love doing that.
Well, and the theme song works on so many different levels. Will doesn't want the town to forsake. Do not forsake me, this town that I love. Amy's like, do not forsake me, my husband. It works for everybody,
Yeah,
and it's a great tune. Great,
wonderful. Yeah, for sure. Something that I'll just kind of listen to in the car a lot now. I love it, but I like that you found a piece of the score, and that definitely is a piece that is sort of moving. Like you said, it kind of does some of the anticipation work for you, and
Yeah,
that's one of the main tools of using music. And in these westerns, it's uber important to do it in the right way, especially for your villain. You want it to not be over the top. You want it to be believable. Like obviously what's going on in Once Upon a Time in the West. Shout out to Ennio Morricone. Like
harmonica.
the kind of weirdness of it, subtlety, kind of piercing style of it. It just sets it apart from what you're used to, and I like that you found something that definitely is like, whoa, kind of piques your interest as we see the evil coming.
Well, I mean, in that scene, that bit where it lingers on the empty chair where Frank Miller said, "I'm coming for you."
Oh, dude.
Like, Jesus Christ, you get goosebumps. It's so well done. And then the train whistle, and you're like, shit, it's happening.
Yeah. There's been a few moments in movies specifically, through this show where I've thought about adding an award for best shot. And that chair shot is one of them, is like one of those shots, damn, that was sick, just for, does all the work you need for it to do as far as storytelling goes, something that obviously we talked a lot about with Citizen Kane, just that symbolism. I love that stuff in High Noon.
Oh, fuck yeah. This is the one I'm very interested in. Performance.
Yeah, the Philip Seymour Hoffman. Yeah. I'm interested because you already said you're interested and you're curious. Because I went with Gary Cooper. I went with the dog. He carries this movie a lot of the time, and while I pretty much love every performance and respect all of them, and our villain is quite amazing once he hits the scene, and there's just something about Cooper that I have found similar to, guys that we've, sort of embraced on this show, guys like Humphrey Bogart, just has this dominance that I kind of look for when I'm watching these old movies where I've read about these guys over and over, and I'm clearly searching for that. And he delivers. He totally delivers in High Noon and makes me want to watch even more. Before it just kind of levels it up. And I love when a actor kind of validates that, justifies that, and gives you more reason to watch more. I can't say enough about what Gary Cooper's doing in High Noon. His eyes alone say more than most people can with their mouth. Yeah.
So sad. They're so pissed off, but he wants to be like, I thought you people had my back. Like, you're letting me, go out and die on my own. Like, and it's perfect. He does a great job.
Yeah. Brilliant stuff. Who do you got? It's obviously different than Cooper. So
it may surprise you. And it surprised me. I did not expect. It's Katie Jurado as Helen Ramirez.
I love it. I love it. That's such a good call.
That character is so well written. She's, in a tip, like in any other movie, she's the exotic beauty who barely speaks English and is just there to be like the femme fatale. In this movie, she is a strong, independent woman who has built her own business and is constantly pointing out when people are being fucking idiots. I love that so much. When she tells Amy, like, you know, if he was my man, I'd fight for him. Like, and Amy's like, well, why don't you? And she's like, he's not my man. He's yours. So what are you doing here? Like, just stuff like that. It's so cool. And the whole time, you know, she just avoids all this shit because she's like, it's not my problem. But I'm rooting for him. I love her character so much. And I love that an actual Mexican American actress played the Mexican American character in 1952.
Isn't that weird that we have to say that? Yeah.
Yeah. It's fucking crazy. But she does such a great job. She has an Oscar nomination under her belt, too.
Yeah, a lot of people that are involved in this movie do. Yeah. Yeah, you have to cut it off somewhere. Jesus, it's crazy. We talked about when we did The Apartment. It's like, oh my Lord, everybody that worked on this has an Oscar nomination somewhere or another. Jesus.
But that, yeah, her connection to Frank Miller, that look they exchange on the platform, where she's just like, "Fuck off," and he's like, "I'm coming after you next." Like, you got that vibe in his eyes. Like, after I finish Kane, I'm coming after you. Like, yeah, she's just such a strong female presence, and I love that because you didn't see that a lot. And yeah, I rest my case.
Hell yeah, man. That's a great call. I have no arguments. She's been nominated for Broken Lance. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 1954. Spencer Tracy's in that one. So yeah, I mean, that's a guy we both really like. So of course we want to try to find our way to that one at some point.
Oh yeah. I've got a lot of Spencer Tracy movies on my list.
Let's see. It won one Oscar for Best Writing, Philip Yordan. And then yeah, Katie Gerardo was nominated. That's it though. That's all it got.
Sometimes those are the most interesting films.
For sure. Broken Lance. Yeah. Spencer Tracy, Katie Gerardo. Definitely going to put that in the back of my mind there, and it's going to stir around and stew. And one day I'll watch it. I love it. I love the Philip Seymour Hoffman Award because it just gives us both a chance to kind of see what we see individually in the movie.
Yeah.
And Gary Cooper is obviously, this is my first time watching it. Gary Cooper is obviously the guy I was kind of focused on this week, watching Sergeant York for the first time, watching High Noon for the first time, you know, just kind of diving in, reading about him. And there was one time someone related to him commented on our Instagram.
I remember that.
Our Filmgazm Instagram. And she's like, I believe it was her, you know, he died in the 60s, I believe. I want to say she was his great niece. Is that how you'd say it? Yeah. Yeah, and she was like, "Oh yeah, this is really cool. You shouted out Gary Cooper because yeah, it's like, yeah, that's what we do, you know. So we want to keep these kind of actors and, you know, films and individuals and characters alive, you know, and just keep the conversation going. That's kind of what it's all about on Oscar Sunday, and Gary Cooper's of course a part of that.
I had totally forgotten about that. That was such a cool instance.
Random. We've had random run-ins with social media stuff. You know, who was it that liked something? There was a random review you did for, I do not want to say the actor's name and just guess.
Session 9.
Yes.
And it was Josh Lucas.
Yeah.
And that was the weirdest, like, what?
Random.
I feel
random
bad
as hell.
I was not generous to Session 9.
You're just like, I like this. Yeah, I liked it on Twitter and Instagram or whatever. Like, what the hell? Okay.
A neat little brush with fame. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it. And we got our last award of the night. Roger Deakins.
Yes.
The best scene or best moment of the movie. What do you got here?
This was a moment I knew it was going to be the moment from the second I put on the movie, because it was the moment that I remembered the most the first time. Because it's so satisfying and it's such a great fuck you. It's right at the end of the film when Kane has dispatched the Miller gang and he just gets on his cart He takes his badge and he throws it on the fucking ground. It's just like, fuck all of you. I'm out. Like, that's what it is. It's none of you had my back. I'm still standing. Not my problem anymore. I'm going to go retire with my babe. Like, that's what it is. It's very much like, bye, assholes. Just the idea to watch in the 50s a U.S. Marshal, the hero of a Western, take the star off his chest and throw it on the ground like it's meaningless. It's beautiful. This film is timeless.
Yeah, so good. So good. I wrote down the last 5 minutes. I'm just kind of blown away by, like you said, those actions from Kane at the end. Him surviving, saying fuck you, throwing it on the ground, all of it, to the credits, to them running off. Everything about it is like, it's pretty much a perfect ending to a movie. Again, I can't believe this movie's an hour and 25 minutes and just fits all this really cool storytelling, character arcs, awesome action sequences, dialogue, all in one movie, and it caps it off with a legit ending. So cool.
Carl Foreman, man, the guy knew what he was doing. Those commies can write a damn good Western.
Hell yeah. Yeah, it's definitely the Blacklist. That's a place to go if you want to watch cool movies.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh man, I love it. Yeah, I love like what the ending of High Noon means kind of for movies after it, and what's possible, right, for someone to do in their own mind, whether actually be able to be made as a movie, but now, the Stanley Kubricks of the world, the Martin Scorsese's, the guys that are about to come on the scene are inspired and then can just be the next wave and stretch it even further. And I love seeing movies like that. I love seeing American movies that actually tried to push boundaries. It's so refreshing, because some of them are just so redundant and so silly and, just kind of flimsy in storytelling, and High Noon just doesn't cut corners.
It doesn't. And Carl Foreman, especially, like he would later bring this same like American anti-hero mentality to another film he wrote in 1957 called The Bridge on the River Kwai.
Yeah.
This guy was immensely talented, and McCarthy couldn't bring him down. He couldn't. He kept working, and he made some incredible films. And he's a guy I wish we talked about more.
I agree. I think we got a lot of stuff here through this week, through this show, through this specific episode. Talking about High Noon, it is one of those films that opens kind of a lot of different doors, not just one, but a few. And I'm really grateful for movies like this, man. This is my first time watching it. I give it a 9 overall, but it definitely can reach that place. It can totally reach that place of a 10. Definitely going to rewatch it in the future.
Oh yeah. I give it an 8, but it's a very high 8. Like, I can see this moving up for sure. Yeah, hell of a film. One of the best of the 50s. And just a celebrated, well-written Western. Very exciting.
Yeah, man. You got anything else to say about the 50s Westerns or High Noon?
No. Sorry I doubted you, Fred Zinnemann. There you go. What do we got going on next week?
It's unavoidable. It's unavoidable, like it is Kane dealing with these fuckers in High Noon. Next week we're doing something pretty special, something that we don't typically do on Oscar Sunday. We like to stay in our own lane and kind of just tackle old shit and specific things from Oscar history. But we're gonna kind of pair next week's episode with what's going on in sneak preview. So, Frances McDormand is kind of a big deal when it comes to the Oscars. We're going to be talking about Fargo, 1996. She, of course, won Best Actress for that film, and we're going to talk about the Coens, talk about her resume with the Oscars, Frances McDormand, and the day after that is when we'll be able to, you and I, talk about Nomadland.
Yeah.
So we feel as though not just you and I, not we feel, a lot of people feel as though she's going to win Best Actress for that movie, Nomadland, at this next upcoming Oscars in April. So I just feel like it's necessary. I think she is fucking fantastic in pretty much everything I've seen her in. You know, North Country, you know, Three Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri, any of the Coen stuff, you know, Raising Arizona, you know, you could bring up any of those like random roles. Olive Kitteridge over on HBO, like miniseries. She's just awesome in like everything I've seen her in. And of course, Fargo. So I feel good about doing a kind of tribute those 2 days, Sunday and Monday, on Oscar Sunday and sneak preview for Francis.
Absolutely. Fargo. Beautiful. I'm very excited to tackle our first Coen Brothers movie.
Yeah. Inevitably, we'll be talking about the Coens next week, which we haven't done in depth since we've pretty much started this show. Filmgazm, that is, a long time ago. Yeah. It's been a while since we've really been able to just dive into something that they've done and to highlight Fargo, which is like, for you and I, we both like it, but it's not like in our top tier Coen. So it's going to be super interesting to go into that. I'm excited.
Cool. You look back at the early days of Filmgazm and you can see the seeds for Oscar Sunday and the sneak preview. We just didn't know what they were yet.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, we totally wanted to tackle
everything.
Oscar nominated movies for sure. And current movies for sure. So they had to have their own shows. Yeah.
Fuck yeah. This week on Filmgazm, Josh and I are tackling My Bloody Valentine in honor of Valentine's Day.
Of course.
And of course, sneak preview, we're tackling the HBO Max release, Judas and the Black Messiah. Very excited.
Super, super excited, right? You know, Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield is one of the better. That's a 31-year-old and 29-year-old, kind of in the thick of their prime. That's about as good as it can get for actors right now.
Kaluuya's voice alone in this film, just from the preview, gives me fucking chills. And I can't believe he's British. I just can't. It's unbelievable. He's got like the best range of almost anybody working today. It's fucking phenomenal. I agree. So we got some good shit coming this week. Have a good one, everybody. Keep watching movies.